Director Kang's fingers wrapped around Ji-won's wrist with surprising gentleness, though his grip was unmovable as steel. He had materialized from his office like smoke, his tailored black suit making him seem even taller in the dim evening light of the 20th floor. The slap never landed. Martha's eyes were still squeezed shut, her brown hands clutching the mop handle like a lifeline, water from the bucket pooling around her worn sneakers. Her heart hammered against her ribcage so violently she thought everyone could hear it. Supervisor Young. His voice was quiet. Dangerously quiet. Ji-won's face drained of color, her perfectly made-up features contorting from rage to shock. Her raised hand trembled in his grip, her red nails like talons frozen mid-strike. Director Kong, this woman, she was insolent, she. My office. Now. 2 words. That was all it took. He released her wrist and Ji-won stumbled backward, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. She shot Martha a look of pure venom before smoothing her skirt and walking toward the glass office with her head held high, though her hands shook. Martha finally opened her eyes. Director Kong stood before her, and for a moment, just a breath of a moment, their eyes met. His dark eyes, usually so cold and calculating during board meetings, softened just slightly. There was something there, swimming beneath the surface. Concern. Regret. Martha couldn't name it, but she felt it like heat against her skin. Are you hurt? He asked in English, his accent thick but his words careful. Martha shook her head quickly, unable to find her voice. Her throat felt tight. He studied her face for another second, and Martha became acutely aware of everything wrong with her appearance. Her faded cleaning uniform, the sweat on her brow, her hair wrapped in an old scarf because she couldn't afford a proper bonnet. Next to Ji-won's polished perfection, she must look like nothing. But he was looking at her like she was something. Go home early today, he said softly. I will handle this. Then he turned and walked toward his office, leaving Martha standing in a puddle of her own making, her pulse racing for entirely different reasons now. Through the glass walls of Director Kang's office, Martha could see Ji-won's silhouette. Even from a distance, the supervisor's fury was palpable. Martha quickly gathered her cleaning supplies, her hands still trembling, and pushed her cart toward the service elevator. But she couldn't help herself. She glanced back. Director Kong stood with his back to the window, his hands in his pockets. Ji-won was speaking rapidly, gesturing, her face flushed. But he wasn't looking at her. His head was turned slightly, and even from across the floor Martha knew, somehow she knew, he was watching her reflection in the dark window glass. Their eyes met through the reflection. Martha's breath caught. Then the elevator dinged, shattering the moment. She hurried inside, her heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. Inside the office. Completely disrespectful. She doesn't bow properly, she doesn't follow protocol, and today she had the audacity to question my instructions about the executive bathroom schedule. Ji-won's voice was shrill now, all pretense of professionalism abandoned. Director Kong turned slowly from the window, his expression unreadable. So you were going to hit her? It wasn't a question. I was going to discipline her. Director Kong, you know how important hierarchy is in this company. How can we maintain order if the help doesn't? The help. His voice dropped several degrees. Ms. Young, her name is Martha Okafor. She has worked in this building for 2 years. She sends money home to Nigeria every month to support her younger siblings. She is studying for her accounting certification at night. And she is not the help. Ji-won's mouth opened and closed like a fish. How do you? Why do you know these things? The question hung in the air like smoke. Director Kong moved to his desk, pressing his palms against the dark wood. When he looked up, his eyes were hard. Because I pay attention to the people who work for me. All of them. Not just the ones in tailored suits. Director Kong. Ji-won's voice changed, became softer, almost pleading. She took a step closer, her perfume filling the space between them. You know how I feel about you. I've been patient, I've been professional, But watching you look at her like that. Like what, Ms. Young? Like she matters. The words exploded out of her, raw and desperate. Ji-won's chest heaved, her eyes glistening. I have been by your side for 3 years. I know how you take your coffee, I know your schedule better than you do. I stay late, I come in early, I wear the colors you mentioned you like. I learned to make small talk about baseball even though I hate sports. And I appreciate your work. His voice was firm but not unkind. You are an excellent supervisor. But Ms. Young, I have never, not once, given you any indication that my appreciation was anything other than professional. But you look at her. Ji-won's voice cracked. A cleaner. A foreigner who can barely speak Korean. What does she have that I don't? Director Kong was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. This conversation is inappropriate. What I will say is this: if you ever raise your hand to any employee in this company again, you will be terminated immediately. No warnings. No second chances. Ji-won stumbled backward as if he'd struck her. You would choose her over me? After everything I've done. I am choosing basic human decency over workplace violence, he said, each word precise. Go home, Ms. Young. Take tomorrow off. Come back Wednesday with a clear head and a professional attitude, or don't come back at all. For a moment, Ji-won looked like she might argue. Her hands clenched into fists, her perfectly applied lipstick trembling. Then, with a strangled sound, she turned and fled from the office. Director Kong stood alone in the silence, his reflection staring back at him from the dark window. In the glass, he could still see the phantom image of Martha, the way her eyes had widened in fear, the way her hands had trembled, the way she'd looked so small and vulnerable and absolutely beautiful in that moment when he'd wanted nothing more than to. He closed his eyes and pressed his fists against the desk. This was dangerous. This feeling. This. Whatever it was. But when he opened his eyes again, he found himself reaching for his phone, scrolling to the HR files, pulling up her employee record just to see her photo again. Martha Okafor. Age 26. From Port Harcourt. Beautiful smile in her ID photo, even though he'd never seen her smile like that in person. He wondered what it would take to make her smile at him that way. Then he wondered why he was wondering. And why he couldn't seem to stop. Martha didn't sleep that night. She lay in her tiny studio apartment in Itaewon, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of what had happened. The way Director Kong had appeared like some kind of guardian angel. The way his hand had caught Ji-won's wrist with such controlled strength. The way he'd looked at her afterward, really looked at her, not through her like most people did. Director Kong stepped out, clearly surprised to see her. He was in a navy suit today, his hair still slightly damp from a morning shower. He carried his briefcase in one hand and a coffee in the other. And a second coffee. Ms. Okafor. He said her name carefully, his accent making it sound almost musical. You're here early. I always am, Director Kong. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. She bowed properly, deeply, the way Ji-won had always insisted. When she straightened, he was holding out the second coffee to her. Martha stared at it like it might bite her. I cannot accept, Director Kong. It's not appropriate. It's coffee, not a marriage proposal, he said, and there was the ghost of a smile at the corner of his mouth. Please. You look tired. Slowly, carefully, Martha took the cup. Their fingers brushed for just a second, and she felt that touch all the way to her bones. Thank you, she whispered. They stood there in the empty hallway, the early morning light streaming through the windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. The moment stretched, fragile and impossible. I wanted to apologize, he said finally, for what happened Monday. You should never have been put in that position. It's not your fault. I am responsible for everything that happens in this company. His voice was firm. Including ensuring my employees feel safe. Do you feel safe? The question hung between them. Martha thought about Ji-won's hatred, the way other supervisors looked at her, the casual cruelty of being invisible. But she also thought about her siblings, her mother's medication, her dreams of becoming an accountant. "I feel safe enough," she said quietly. His jaw tightened. "That's not the same as feeling safe." "No," she admitted. "But it's enough." He studied her for a long moment, and Martha felt exposed under that gaze, like he could see every secret she carried, every dream she'd buried, every lonely night she'd cried into her pillow. "You're studying accounting," he said suddenly, "at Seoul National University's extension program." Martha's eyes widened. "How did you?" "I pay attention." He paused. "We have an opening in our accounting department. Junior level, but it's a start. Better pay, regular hours, benefits. I can arrange an interview if you're interested." Martha's heart soared and plummeted in the same breath. "Director Kong, I can't accept special treatment. People already talk. This isn't special treatment. You're qualified. Your grades are excellent. You deserve the opportunity." He took a step closer, and Martha could smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that made her head spin. "Let me ask you something, Ms. Okafor. If I were offering this position to any other qualified candidate, would you think it was inappropriate?" "No, but..." "Then don't diminish your own worth because of other people's prejudices." His voice softened. "You work twice as hard as anyone else in this building. You're brilliant. You're dedicated. And you deserve to be seen for who you are, not what you do." Tears pricked at Martha's eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever seen her this way. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care?" Director Kang's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his features. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally said, "Because when I look at you, I see someone who reminds me why I started this company. Someone who fights for every inch. Someone who doesn't take anything for granted." He paused. "Someone I admire." The confession hung in the air between them, electric and dangerous. "Director Kong." "Kong Min-jun," he said quietly. "My name is Kong Min-jun." Martha's breath caught. In Korean culture, the use of given names was intimate, personal. He was crossing a line, and they both knew it. "I shouldn't." "No," he agreed. "You shouldn't. But I wanted you to know it anyway." The elevator dinged again. They sprang apart like guilty teenagers as a maintenance worker stepped out, nodding at them both before heading down the hallway. Director Kong, Min-jun, cleared his throat. "Think about the position. HR will contact you about the interview. It will be fair and legitimate, I promise." Then he walked toward his office, leaving Martha standing in the hallway, her heart racing, the coffee still warm in her hands. The interview. Ji-won returned to work that Wednesday with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and a coldness that could freeze fire. She didn't speak to Martha directly, but her presence was a constant threat. Watching, waiting, looking for any excuse. The HR interview was scheduled for Friday afternoon. "You're really going through with this?" Blessing asked Thursday night as Martha practiced interview questions in their apartment. "Girl, that woman wants to kill you. And now you're going to be working in the same department." "Ji-won works in operations, not accounting," Martha said, though her stomach churned with anxiety. "And I need this job, Blessing. I can't clean floors forever." "It's not the job I'm worried about," Blessing said, her tone pointed. "It's the way you talk about him." Director Kong said this. Director Kong thinks that. "Martha, you're playing with fire." "I'm not playing with anything," Martha protested, but her cheeks warmed. "He's just being professional. Professional men don't learn their cleaners' life stories. Professional men don't look at employees the way he looks at you." "And how does he look at me?" Blessing gave her a long, knowing look. "Like he's drowning and you're air." Friday, 3 p.m. The interview panel consisted of 3 people: the accounting department head, an HR representative, And Director Kong. Martha's hands were sweating as she entered the conference room. Minjun's eyes found hers immediately, but his expression was carefully neutral. Professional. But she saw it. The slight softening around his eyes, the way his shoulders relaxed just a fraction when she sat down. The interview was rigorous. They asked about her education, her experience, her understanding of Korean tax law and international accounting standards. Martha answered each question carefully, drawing on her night classes and her natural aptitude for numbers. She could feel Minjun watching her, but he asked only one question. Ms. Okafor, what drives you? Martha looked directly at him. My family. My future. The belief that hard work and integrity matter more than where you start. She paused. And the hope that one day, people will see me for my capabilities, not my circumstances. Something flickered in his eyes. Pride, maybe, or recognition. The department head and HR representative exchanged glances. Thank you, Ms. Okafor, the HR representative said. We'll be in touch by Monday. As Martha stood to leave, Minjun spoke. Ms. Okafor, one moment please. The others filed out, and suddenly they were alone in the conference room. You did well, he said quietly. Did I get the job? I can't tell you that. It wouldn't be appropriate. But his eyes said yes, yes, you brilliant woman, of course you did. Martha took a step closer, emboldened by something she couldn't name. Director Kong. Minjun, he corrected softly. Minjun, she repeated, and the name felt like silk on her tongue. Why are you really doing this? And please don't tell me it's just because I'm qualified. He was quiet for a long moment, his internal struggle visible on his face. Then he said, do you know what it's like to go through life performing a role? To be the dutiful son, the successful businessman, the eligible bachelor. To have everyone see you as a symbol rather than a person. Martha thought of being invisible, being dismissed, being reduced to her uniform. Yes, she whispered. I think I do. The first time I saw you, he continued, his voice low and intense. You were singing. It was early morning. You thought no one was around. You were cleaning the executive lounge and singing in Igbo, and your voice was. He paused, searching for words. It was the most genuine thing I'd heard in years. You weren't performing. You were just being. Martha's eyes widened. You heard that. I've heard it many times since. I started coming in early just to. He stopped himself, seeming to realize how that sounded. I'm sorry. This is inappropriate. Is it? Martha heard herself ask. Or is it just honest? The air between them crackled with possibility. Minjun took a step closer. Then another. They were inches apart now, close enough that Martha could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. Martha, he said, using her first name for the first time, and it sounded like a prayer. I am your employer. There are rules, ethics, power dynamics. I know. If people found out. I know. G1 would make your life hell. She already does. His hand lifted, hovering near her face, not quite touching. Tell me to stop. Martha's breath came in short gasps. Every rational thought screamed at her to step away, to protect herself, to remember who she was and who he was and all the impossible distance between them. Instead, she whispered, I can't. His thumb brushed her cheek, featherlight, and Martha's eyes fluttered closed. The touch was electric, sending shivers down her spine. When she opened her eyes, his face was even closer, his lips mere inches from hers. This is dangerous, he murmured. I know. We could both lose everything. I know. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you for months. I know, she whispered. Me too. The confession hung between them, heavy with implication. Minjun's hand cupped her face fully now, his thumb tracing her jawline with devastating gentleness. If we do this, he said, his voice rough, there's no going back. Then don't go back, Martha breathed. Go forward. He kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, questioning. But when Martha's hands came up to grip his suit jacket, when she rose on her toes to press closer, the kiss deepened into something hungry and desperate and real. Years of loneliness, months of stolen glances, weeks of denial, all of it poured into this moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Min-jun pressed his forehead against hers. God help us, he whispered in Korean. God help us, Martha echoed in Igbo. A sound at the door made them spring apart. Through the frosted glass, they could see a figure standing in the hallway. The silhouette was distinctly feminine, small and rigid with fury. Ji-won. The storm breaks. How long has she been there? Martha whispered, her heart hammering. Min-jun's jaw was set, his professional mask slipping back into place. It doesn't matter. We haven't done anything wrong. We were kissing. She can't see through frosted glass. But his voice was tight with worry. Go out first. I'll leave in 10 minutes. We'll say we were discussing your training schedule. Martha nodded, trying to calm her racing pulse. She smoothed her clothes, touched her lips where they still tingled from his kiss, then walked to the door. The hallway was empty. Had she imagined the figure? Had Ji-won really been there, or was it just paranoia casting shadows? Martha didn't know. But she felt watched all the way to the elevator. Monday morning. Martha was offered the position. Junior accountant, starting salary 38 million won per year. More than double what she made as a cleaner. She could pay for her mother's medication and still have money left over. She could buy new clothes. She could stop living on ramen. She should have been ecstatic. Instead, she felt sick with anxiety. Ji-won's behavior had become increasingly erratic. She found excuses to visit the accounting department, to check files that didn't need checking, to observe Martha with cold, calculating eyes. She smiled at meetings. She was professionally courteous to Min-jun. But her eyes promised murder. She knows, Blessing said flatly when Martha told her about the kiss. Even if she didn't see, she knows. Women always know. We've been careful. Careful. Blessing laughed bitterly. Martha, love, you light up like a Christmas tree whenever he walks into a room. He can't take his eyes off you during meetings. Everyone can see it except maybe you too. It's not love, Martha protested weakly. It's just attraction. Infatuation. Blessing gave her a pitying look. Keep telling yourself that. The confrontation came 2 weeks into Martha's new position. She was working late, reviewing quarterly reports, when Ji-won appeared in the doorway of the accounting department. The office was mostly empty, just Martha and one other junior accountant who was packing up to leave. Working hard, I see, Ji-won said, her voice saccharine. Or should I say, working your way up? Martha kept her eyes on her computer. Good evening, Supervisor Young. Can I help you with something? Oh, I think you've already helped yourself to quite enough. Ji-won walked closer, her heels clicking ominously. Tell me, Martha. May I call you Martha? Or should I call you what you really are? The other accountant grabbed his bag and practically fled. They were alone. I don't know what you mean, Martha said carefully. Don't you? Ji-won's mask cracked, revealing the fury beneath. Did you think I didn't see you? In that conference room, pressed up against him like a bitch in heat. Martha stood slowly, her chair scraping against the floor. You need to leave. Or what? You'll tell your boyfriend? Oh wait, I'm sorry, your boss. The man who signs your paychecks. The man who's using you for. That's enough. Min-jun's voice cut through the air like a blade. He stood in the doorway, his face carved from stone. How long had he been there? Ji-won's expression cycled through shock, fear, and then twisted into something ugly. Director Kong. Perfect timing. I was just explaining to your little pet here about company policy regarding fraternization. My office. Now. I will not be dismissed like. Now, Ms. Young, or I call security to escort you out of this building permanently. Ji-won looked between them, her chest heaving. Then she laughed. A horrible, broken sound. You're destroying yourself for her. For a cleaner. A foreigner. Someone so beneath you that, get out. The command was quiet but absolute. Ji-won flinched as if struck, then grabbed her purse and stalked toward the elevator, her face blotchy with rage and tears. The silence she left behind was deafening. Min-jun turned to Martha, his expression softening with concern. Are you all right? Martha sank back into her chair, her hands trembling. She saw us. That day in the conference room. I know. This is going to get worse. I know that too. He moved closer, then stopped himself, aware they were in the office, that anyone could walk by. Martha, if you want to walk away from this, from me, I would understand. I would give you the best recommendation, help you find another position. Is that what you want? Martha looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. For me to leave? No, he said roughly. God, no. But I don't want you to suffer because of me either. Ji-won is right about one thing. I have power here, privilege. If this blows up, I'll be fine. But you. I'll be the homewrecker. The gold digger. The African woman who seduced her way into a job. Martha's voice was bitter. I know the script, Min-jun. I've lived it my whole life in one form or another. He knelt beside her chair. Propriety be damned. Then let me protect you. Let me. I don't need protection, Martha said fiercely. I need honesty. I need to know what this is. What we are. Because if you're just curious, or bored, or... Martha. He took her hands in his grip warm and solid. I am a 34-year-old man who has never believed in love at first sight. I have dated appropriate women from appropriate families. I have attended countless matchmaking meetings with daughters of business partners. I have performed the role expected of me. He paused, his thumbs stroking her knuckles. And then I heard you singing. And I saw you working twice as hard as anyone else for half the recognition. And I watched you send money home instead of buying yourself a winter coat. And I realized that every other woman I'd ever met was performing too. But you're real. You're brilliant and strong and kind, and you make me want to be real too. Tears spilled down Martha's cheeks. Min-jun. I'm falling in love with you, he said simply. And yes, it's inconvenient and complicated and possibly career suicide for both of us. But it's also the most honest thing I've ever felt. Martha pulled her hands from his and stood, pacing to the window. Seoul glittered below them, millions of lights in the darkness. Somewhere in this city, Ji-won was plotting revenge. Somewhere, people were already gossiping. Somewhere, the walls were closing in. But when she turned back to look at Min-jun, still kneeling by her chair, his heart in his eyes, she knew her answer. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. And I'm terrified. Me too. He stood, closing the distance between them. So what do we do? Martha thought of her mother, who had raised 6 children alone after her father left. Her grandmother, who had walked miles every day to sell vegetables in the market. The generations of strong women whose blood ran in her veins. We fight, she said. We're careful, we're professional in public, but we don't hide like we're ashamed. And if it costs us everything. She took a shaky breath. At least we'll have chosen it ourselves. Min-jun smiled then, a real smile, full of warmth and something that looked like wonder. You are extraordinary. I'm scared. Good, he said, pulling her into his arms. That means this matters. They stood there in the empty office, holding each other as the city lights twinkled below, knowing that the hardest part was yet to come. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. And that would have to be enough. Consequences and choices. The rumors started the next day. Whispers in break rooms. Side eyes in hallways. The accounting department suddenly became very popular with people who had no business being there. Martha held her head high and did her work. Min-jun maintained his professional distance in public, though his eyes found hers across conference rooms, speaking volumes in silence. But Ji-won was building her case. She documented every interaction. Every time Min-jun stopped by the accounting department. Every lunch break where Martha and Min-jun happened to be in the same cafe. Every early morning when they both arrived before anyone else. She compiled it all into a report and delivered it to the board of directors. The emergency meeting was called for Friday. They want you to choose, Min-jun told Martha Thursday night. They were in his car, parked in a dark corner of a public lot, one of the few places they could talk privately. Your job or us? Martha's heart sank. And you? They want me to fire you and issue a public statement about maintaining professional boundaries. His voice was hollow. They're threatening to call for my removal as director if I don't. Your company. Your life's work. Or you, he said, turning to face her. Martha, I won't let them force you out. I'll resign first. No. Martha's voice was firm. You've worked too hard, sacrificed too much to build this company. I won't let you throw it away for what? For love. Martha, what's the point of building an empire if I'm miserable and alone inside it? They sat in silence, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on them. There has to be another way, Martha said finally. We can't let them win. Not G1, not the board, not everyone who thinks people like us can't be together. Min-jun's phone buzzed. A message from his mother. I'm hearing disturbing rumors. Call me immediately. Another from his father. Board meeting tomorrow. Fix this. The walls were closing in from every direction. What if? Martha said slowly, an idea forming. What if we go public? On our terms. Before they can control the narrative. Martha, the backlash. Will happen anyway, she finished. But at least this way, we're not hiding like we've done something wrong. At least we're telling our own story. Min-jun studied her face, seeing the determination there, the strength. This woman who had faced down poverty and prejudice and never backed down. You're sure? He asked. No, she admitted. But I'm sure about you. About us. And I'm tired of being ashamed of something that makes me happy. He kissed her then, there in the dark parking lot, with everything at stake and nothing guaranteed. Tomorrow then, he murmured against her lips. We face them together. Friday, 10 a.m. The boardroom was packed. Directors, shareholders, G1 sitting with a satisfied smirk, legal counsel, HR representatives. Everyone waiting to watch Director Kong either fall in line or fall from grace. Min-jun walked in with Martha at his side. The room went silent. Gentlemen, Min-jun began, his voice steady. I understand we're here to discuss my relationship with Ms. Okafor. So let me be clear. Yes, we are in a relationship. Yes, it began while she was my employee. And no, I will not apologize for it. Chaos erupted. Board members shouting, G1 looking triumphant, legal counsel frantically taking notes. Min-jun raised his hand for silence. However, he continued, I recognize the concerns about conflict of interest and company policy. Therefore, effective immediately, I am removing myself from any decisions regarding Ms. Okafor's employment, salary, or advancement. A third-party review will be conducted to ensure her hiring and promotion were based solely on merit. And I am implementing a new company-wide policy on relationships between employees at different levels. He pulled out a document and slid it across the table. This policy requires disclosure, third-party oversight, and clear boundaries. It protects employees from retaliation and abuse of power. It will make this company a leader in ethical workplace relationships. The oldest board member, Chairman Park, leaned forward. And if we reject this proposal? if we demand you end this entanglement. Minjun looked at Martha, who stood tall despite every eye on her. Then he looked back at the board. Then you'll have my resignation, he said calmly. And I'll start a competing firm with every client who values innovation over prejudice. I've already had preliminary conversations with our 5 biggest accounts. They're willing to follow me. The threat hung in the air. Chairman Park's eyes narrowed. You would destroy everything you've built over a woman? No, Minjun said. I would destroy everything I've built over the principle that love, when it's honest and consensual and real, should never be punished. My relationship with Ms. Okafor is all of those things. And if this company can't evolve to recognize that, then perhaps it deserves to be destroyed. Martha spoke then, her voice clear and strong. If I may, Chairman Park, I understand the concerns about my relationship with Director Kong. But I ask you to review my work objectively. My performance reviews, my project outcomes, my qualifications. I was hired through a proper interview process with a panel. I have excelled in every task given to me. I am not asking for special treatment. I'm asking not to be punished for falling in love with someone who happened to be my employer. She paused, looking around the room. I came to Korea with nothing. I worked jobs no one else wanted. I studied at night while cleaning your offices. I earned my place here. And yes, I fell in love with Director Kong. But I did not seduce him for advancement. I did not manipulate him for gain. I simply loved him. And he loved me back. If that's a crime, then punish me. But don't pretend it's about policy or ethics. Be honest that it's about prejudice. The room was utterly silent. Chairman Park studied them both for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. My wife was my secretary when we met, he said quietly. 40 years ago, I faced a similar choice. My family disowned me for 2 years. He looked at the other board members. Director Kong is right. If we punish honest love while ignoring the actual power abuses that happen in this building daily, we're not protecting anyone. We're just enforcing old prejudices. He stood. I propose we accept Director Kang's new policy proposal. We conduct the third-party review he suggested. And we move forward as a company that values merit and ethics over gossip and fear. One by one, the other board members nodded. All except one. This is insane. Ji-won stood, her face red. You're rewarding them for breaking the rules. 4. Ms. Young, Chairman Park said coldly, you were informed last week that your own behavior was under review. Witnesses have come forward about your mistreatment of multiple employees, including physical threats and harassment. Your employment is hereby terminated, effective immediately. Ji-won's face went white. You can't. This is because of her. Because she. Security will escort you out, Chairman Park said. Collect your personal items and leave. As security led a screaming Ji-won from the room, Min-jun reached for Martha's hand under the table. They had won. But they both knew this was just the beginning. 6 months later, Martha stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at the positive pregnancy test in her shaking hands. She heard Min-jun's key in the lock, heard him call out, I'm home. They had moved in together 2 months ago, after the scandal had died down, after the third-party review had confirmed her merit, after they'd stopped hiding. She walked out of the bathroom, test in hand. Min-jun took one look at her face and went pale. What is it? Are you sick? Is something? She held up the test. He stared at it. Then at her. Then back at the test. We're. He whispered. Pregnant, Martha finished, tears streaming down her face. I know this is fast. I know we haven't talked about marriage yet. I know your parents still don't approve, I know. He kissed her, deep and thorough and full of joy. When they broke apart, both crying now, he pressed his forehead to hers. Marry me, he said. Not because you're pregnant. Not because it's the right thing to do. but because I can't imagine waking up another day without you as my wife. Your parents will come around when they meet their grandchild. And if they don't, we'll build our own family. Our own traditions. He placed his hand over her still flat stomach. This baby will grow up knowing they're loved. That their mother is the strongest woman I've ever met. That their parents fought against the whole world to be together. Yes, Martha whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. They stood there in their small apartment, holding each other, the positive test clutched between them. Outside, Seoul hummed with life. Somewhere, people were still gossiping about the director and the cleaner. Somewhere, Ji-won was nursing her bitterness. Somewhere, the world continued to turn, indifferent to their struggles. But here, in this moment, they had everything that mattered. They had each other. They had love. They had hope. And they had won.